Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every person's life when the mirror becomes a more important tool than the magnifying glass. We've become a people skilled in pointing fingers. Blame has become a sport. It's the government's fault. It's our parents' fault, our spouse, our boss, the economy, the system, anyone but us. But hear me today, you cannot heal what you will not take responsibility for. You see, blame is easy. It's convenient. It lets us sleep at night thinking we're the victim. But while you're blaming someone else, your life stays the same. Your bitterness grows, but your character shrinks. Your excuses multiply, but your opportunities disappear. Blaming others is easy because it lets us avoid discomfort. It's a natural instinct to shift the weight of responsibility away from ourselves. When things go wrong, pointing the finger at someone else gives us a sense of relief, even if it's temporary. It soothes our pride, it protects our ego. It makes us feel like we're still in the right, even when we're not. But that comfort comes at a cost. Blame might make you feel better in the moment, but it builds a prison around your potential. When you blame others, you give away your power. You hand over the keys to your progress and say, I can't move forward unless they change. And that's a lie. Because the truth is, your growth isn't limited by someone else's behavior. It's limited by your unwillingness to take ownership. When you keep pointing fingers, you stop looking inward. And when you stop looking inward, you stop growing. You stay in the same cycle, same frustration, same patterns, same outcomes, because you're waiting for someone else to fix what you have the power to change. Blame is a dead end. It doesn't lead to solutions, only to more excuses. It doesn't unlock breakthroughs, only delays them. It gives you something to talk about, but nothing to build on. While you're busy blaming others, life keeps moving, but you don't. And in the end, the person who suffers most isn't the one you blamed, it's you. Growth begins when you take personal responsibility, because that's the moment you stop waiting for someone else to change your life. It's the turning point where blame fades and ownership rises. When you take responsibility, you're no longer a passenger, you become the driver. You say, I may not control everything that happens to me, but I do control how I respond to it. Responsibility is not about guilt or shame. It's about power. It's about realizing that your choices, your actions, and your mindset shape your future. It means facing your flaws without fear, admitting your mistakes without excuses, and choosing to grow instead of staying comfortable. There's something freeing about it. When you take personal responsibility, you stop wasting energy on what others did wrong, and you start investing that energy into becoming better, stronger, wiser. You start asking the right questions. What can I learn from this? How can I improve? What can I do differently next time? And the more responsibility you take, the more influence you gain over your habits, your relationships, your goals, your life. That's where growth lives, not in blame, but in brave accountability. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. You can't heal what you don't take ownership of, because healing begins with honesty. If you keep denying the wound, you'll never treat it. If you keep saying, this isn't my fault or this isn't my problem, then you've already decided not to deal with it, and what you don't deal with deals with you. Ownership isn't about taking blame for everything that's happened to you. It's about recognizing where your power lies in the aftermath. Maybe someone hurt you, maybe life hit you hard, but if you keep handing the responsibility for your healing to the people who hurt you, you stay stuck in their story instead of writing your own. Healing takes place when you say, this pain is real, this hurt is mine, and though I didn't choose it, I will choose how to move forward from it. That's when the process begins, not when circumstances change, not when others apologize, but when you decide to reclaim your peace, your mind, your future. You don't have to be perfect to heal. You just have to be willing to take ownership, not of what was done to you, but of what happens next. Because as long as you stay in denial, the wound stays open. But when you face it head on with courage and clarity, healing becomes possible, not overnight, but step by step, moment by moment, choice by choice. Your response to life is your greatest power, because you may not get to choose what happens to you, but you always get to choose what you do with it. Life will test you. People will fail you. Plans will fall apart. But in those moments, your response determines whether you rise or remain. You can't control the storm, but you can control your sail. And that choice, that power, is what sets you apart. Some people face hardship and become bitter. Others face the same hardship and become better. The difference isn't in what happened to them, it's in how they responded. One let the pain define them, the other let the pain refine them. Your response shapes your mindset, your emotions, your next move. It influences your relationships, your resilience, your reputation. You can respond with anger or with grace, with fear or with faith, with blame or with boldness. And every response either moves you closer to who you want to be or further away. That's the power you hold every single day. When things go wrong, when people disappoint you, when life throws the unexpected, your response is the one thing that cannot be taken from you. It's where your strength lives. It's where your character is revealed. You don't need perfect circumstances to have a powerful life. You just need the courage to respond with purpose. Because in the end, it's not what happens to you that defines you. It's how you respond that shapes your story. Change doesn't start with others. It starts with you. That's a hard truth, but it's also a liberating one. Because if you're waiting for someone else to change before you take a step forward, you could be waiting your whole life. If you're hoping that your situation, your environment, or the people around you will improve before you do something different, you've already given away your power. The truth is, you are the starting point, not your boss, not your spouse, not your past, not your circumstances, you. Change happens the moment you decide to stop waiting and start moving. The moment you realize that even if no one else apologizes, supports you, or understands, you can still grow. You can still rise. You can still become better. When you change, everything around you begins to shift. Your attitude changes the atmosphere. Your decisions shape your destiny. Your example influences others more than your expectations ever will. People don't change because we demand it. They change when they see what's possible through someone who leads by example. So stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for someone to hand you permission. Stop waiting for the world to adjust to your dreams. The beginning of transformation is not out there, it's inside of you. It starts when you look in the mirror and say, if anything's going to change, it's going to start with me. You were made to overcome, not to play the victim. There is strength in you that was built for battle, not pity. Life may have knocked you down, but you weren't created to stay there. You weren't designed to live stuck in blame, bitterness, or brokenness. Yes, life can be unfair. People can be cruel. Pain is real. But so is your power. Playing the victim might feel justified for a moment. It draws sympathy. It explains your struggle, but it also keeps you small. It traps you in the story of what happened to you instead of what's possible through you. Overcoming begins the moment you stop saying, look what they did to me, and start saying, look what I will do now. That shift from victim to victor isn't denial of the pain. It's defiance in the face of it. It's refusing to let your worst day become your whole identity. It's knowing that the struggle may be part of your story, but it will not be your final sentence. You were made for more. More than surviving, thriving. More than excuses, action. More than blame, breakthrough. You don't have to wait for the world to make it right. You can stand up, speak up, and step forward, not because everything is perfect, but because you refuse to let it end in defeat. The world needs your strength, your courage, your comeback. So rise, not as a victim of what was, but as an overcomer of what will be. Blame is a barrier. Ownership is a bridge to growth. Blame keeps you stuck behind walls of resentment and excuses. It builds separation between who you are and who you could become. As long as you blame others, your parents, your boss, your upbringing, the system, you create distance between yourself and the power to change. Blame feels safe because it shifts responsibility. It says, this isn't my fault, so it's not my job to fix. But here's the catch. If it's not your job to fix, then it's not in your power to grow. That's the trap. Blame might relieve you of guilt, but it also robs you of transformation. Ownership, on the other hand, is a bridge. It connects your present to your potential. It says, this may not all be my fault, but it is my life, and I'm going to take responsibility for what I do with it. That mindset opens doors, it creates momentum, it puts the future back in your hands. Taking ownership doesn't mean you blame yourself for everything, it means you believe in your ability to rise beyond anything. It means you're not waiting for someone else to change the game, you're stepping onto the field and playing your part. If you want to grow, to heal, to lead, to break cycles, then the first step is to stop hiding behind blame and start walking across the bridge of ownership. That's where real growth begins. You must stop rehearsing your pain and start living your purpose. Because every time you replay the hurt, the betrayal, the failure, you give it new life, you give it new power, you keep feeding a story that was meant to be a chapter, not the whole book. Rehearsing your pain might feel like protection. It becomes familiar. It becomes your excuse for playing small, for staying angry, for not trusting again. But what you rehearse, you reinforce. And what you reinforce becomes your reality. Pain is real, but it's not meant to be your identity. You were not created to live in a cycle of wounds. You were created to walk in a calling. And you can't fulfill that calling if your energy is always tied up in what went wrong. There comes a point where you have to say, yes, it hurt, yes, it shaped me, but it will not define me. Your purpose is not behind you, it's ahead of you. It's not in the memory of the pain, but in the decisions you make moving forward. You cannot walk into your future if you're still clinging to the past with both hands. So release it. Not because it didn't matter, but because you matter more. Your purpose is waiting not for you to be perfect, but for you to be willing to stop nursing old wounds and start nurturing the vision in your heart, willing to stop looking back and finally start moving forward. You weren't meant to be a prisoner of your pain, you were meant to be a steward of your purpose. So step into it boldly, fully. Now, improvement requires courage, honesty, and action. It's not just about wanting to be better, it's about being brave enough to face what's broken, true enough to admit what needs to change, and strong enough to actually do something about it. Courage is needed first, because growth always begins outside your comfort zone. It takes courage to look at yourself without flinching, to confront habits, mindsets, and patterns that have kept you stuck. It takes courage to stop pretending and start progressing even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. Then comes honesty, the kind of honesty that doesn't make excuses or sugarcoat the truth. You have to be willing to say, this is where I fall short, this is where I've been hiding, this is where I need to grow. Without that level of truth, improvement is just a performance. Real change starts when you're no longer trying to protect your image, but willing to build your integrity. And finally, action. Because insight without action is just inspiration that fades. You can read all the books, listen to all the speeches, have all the conversations, but if you don't do something with it, nothing changes. Improvement is not about perfect plans, it's about consistent steps. Small, steady movement in the right direction. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to start. And if you bring your courage, your honesty, and your action to the table, transformation is not only possible, It's inevitable.